This is a wee video demonstration on how to create pivot tables from Kmart downloaded data. So first of all, I'm just going to grab the data from Students Pastoral and go to the Manage menu and just go into Reporting, where we can see all the data from Kmart. Now, because I've used this before, some of the settings are set to my defaults, but you just need to double check that the date filter is just for this year, otherwise you get a few years back. Just apply that filter from 1st of January. Then export the whole database. The default is a tab file, a tab separator file, but if you just go to some kind of Excel workbook, that's going to be best and automatically open the file when it's there. My one's Play 2, and let's just shift it all over into that database. We'll just continue on. All the fields are automatically selected, so we just hit export now. The repeating fields are possibly where teachers revisit the incidents and update them, and so this data is perfect if we just kind of ignore that wee message. All the way that this data is exported is perfectly adequate. So here's my data sitting in Excel. I'm just going to click on this corner area of the spreadsheet and copy the data over and out from my remote window, and just go into an Excel version on my laptop, which is a little bit more reliable for me. It is responding, it's just taking its time, so I'll just wait for that to copy over. Perfect. So it's all sitting here on this sheet, and all we do again, it is highlighted, but just make sure that you have clicked the whole sheet, and then you go into Insert menu and Pivot Table, and you've got the range selected in there, which is perfect, and you want to create it in a new worksheet. So it's here in worksheet 2, if you can see down here. Now this is where your pivot table is going to rest, and on the right there's a template for setting up your fields. So first of all, the reason is the field that I'm going to drag into the rows. And here we have a list of the reasons, and we also need to put this field into the sum value, which is our counts in this case, or our actual data of those fields. I think the default is something else and not count, so if you can't see count of reason and it's giving you a sum or something odd like that, just right click or go into value field settings and make sure you've got count selected. The other thing that's useful is if you want to put the year level in as a filter, and even the tutor is quite a good one, I think, for the type of work here, potentially. So that's all sitting up here like a little filter key. So for example, if we wanted to choose select multiple items, deselect all, and choose year 12 for instance, you've got all the year 12 data there. So before I do anything further with that, I'm just going to reselect all the year levels. So this is the whole school stuff for this year. Now you'll see that it's in alphabetical order from, you know, abusing all sorts of people through to whānau concerns. What I'll actually do is I'll highlight the counts, or the actual data column, and head over into data and do a sort from largest to smallest. Now you'll notice that that's taken, or that's sorted with the reason through, so the top one there is the late to school, so it's no longer alphabeticized. In Excel, usually, you see the way I'm highlighting this, you'd normally highlight for a sort function the things together, the two aspects together, but that doesn't seem to work in pivot table. So for pivot table, if you just sort on the actual value, it takes the reason with it, which is quite cool. So we have the count of reasons here, and I was just demonstrating before how you can select a year level in the little filter keys, and you can then go through and perhaps pick a tutor for that one. Alternatively, let's grab the tutor and put it in the columns, so that's your cross tabulation across the top, so it gives you your counts there. Now it's also possible with pivot tables to change counts to percentages and things like that, so that's all very possible. But I'm not going to show that at the moment because it's just a little bit too much. But basically with this panel here, the important thing is that you can pull and move stuff around and create the version of your choice. You really can't mess it up, so you can start again or just come back here and play. The moment you are not clicked in the pivot table, so if I click outside, you'll notice that that little setup wizard or that little panel is gone. You just need to come back and click back on the pivot table, and then you can tutu around with those fields, which is quite nice. So up here I've got the couple of filters. Nice generic one might be gender, and it can just hang up there. Now for the work that I was doing, I was interested in tracking, so I had some dates running across in my columns in my cross tabulation. So I'm just going to go for the date that the incidents occurred and throw them in this column part. Now the actual dates themselves are single dates, so you've got an absolutely useless presentation of the data here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on one of the cells and select group, and I've got the months thing there. So what it does is it sorts things into month categories, much more useful. And the other thing I'm going to do is let's do a pivot chart first, and then I'll show you some refinements that make the pivot tables really useful, much more useful again. So I'm on the pivot table, I'm going to insert a pivot chart, boom. I can select any type of chart, and I think bar is the one that I favoured before, so I'll just select that bar chart, OK it. And it's sitting here in the middle of my workbook. With all charts, if you're going to use and copy these into, say, a PDF file or a Word document, you right click on it and you move it into its own new tab as a new sheet, and that just reapportions or proportionalizes all your headings and the graph itself, so it's much more user friendly, and that's the version that you want to be pasting into other formats. So if I come back here to sheet, I have got all the rats and mice data following these sort of major categories. So I just might want to do a cut off, sort of some natural break of reasons there, such as counsellor concerns perhaps. So one way, just be in this reason thing here, right click and select filter, and just choose this one here, top 10, and you can actually adjust that. So I'm going to choose the top 15 by count of reason. Click OK, and it just truncates my table and gives me my top group, which is easier to look at. So if I click over to the chart, it's actually reflected that truncation in the chart as well. Now the chart could be useful. I can see here that the August months are grey. It might be handy to record the data labels or to reflect those. So if I add those in there, it gives me my counts. I think if I highlight them all, I can actually make them bigger and so on before I go exporting this out to somewhere else. Nice big numbers, a little bit too big probably, but there you go. So there's lots of things you can do to play with this and have it looking smart. Back here to my pivot table, remembering we can pull and drag things around, but there's a couple of features that I believe are really much more make the thing a whole lot more useful. If I go to insert, I can add an additional thing called a slicer, and it's an additional filter that sits outside the table. So I may choose to do a house slicer, which may be of interest. So for example, if I select Hino or Rata, I have filtered out everything else. I was going to put the data back. If I highlight this or just click on it and hit the delete key, it will go away for me. That may be a useful feature, but the one that I really like is the timeline, and I'm going to do it by date of incident, OK. And what this allows me to do, for example, is to choose just the August month, or if I drag it back this way, the July month as well. So here I've got July and August. Before you actually export this data here, if I just show you another little quick trick, when you're ready to present your data, if you're doing it in a table like this, you can sort of center it and play around with it a little bit, but that's okay. So I've got the July, August. I'm just going to choose August, and I'm going to regroup up here. So remember, I right click and do my grouping. I'm going to do it according to days, take the months off, and I can adjust number of days to 7. So I've actually got a weekly break now of the last 4 weeks in August, actually starting from late July. What's really nice is that's all centered, so it looks really good too. So that's pretty handy. I can take that back to July as well and get that week breakdown also. So I really like the slicer. I think it's really versatile, and it allows you to break your tracking up also. I think that's the main things to just point out in pivot tables. They're really flexible and fast. You can't really go too wrong with them. It's just a matter of deciding what you actually want to display and how you want to analyze the data. So I'm doing a few more advanced things with the current school ones, which is going to make for really useful data mining. But if you have any questions on pivot tables, I'm really happy to answer them. And quite excited about doing this kind of thing. So all the best of luck.